Barbados and St. Lucia come through tropical storm Dorian virtually unscathed. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Tuesday, August 27th. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Dawn Paris. Good evening. Tropical storm Dorian passed across Barbados and St. Lucia between Monday night and Tuesday morning, but spared the islands major damage. Watches and warnings for the two islands, as well as St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Grenada, were discontinued on Tuesday, and the all-clear given in Barbados and St. Lucia, ending national shutdowns that had been in effect in those islands. In Barbados, the all-clear was given by 5 a.m. The Grantley Adams International Airport reopened 2 hours later, and the public service resumed operations at 10 a.m. The Department of Emergency Management said there were 9 incidents, with most of those related to fallen trees and power lines, a case of a fallen wall, and 1 incident of a lifting roof, which led to an evacuation. At a press conference on Tuesday morning, Prime Minister Mia Mottley cautioned that there was still a while to go before the end of the hurricane season, but Dorian had given some indication of the country's readiness.
That this was early in the season for this, and we have to be conscious that we are not yet at November 30th, which is the end of the hurricane season. Indeed, we still have 3 full months to go. If ever there was a dry run in preparing ourselves, this effectively could be considered a dry run, and some may even say by the absence of the volume of rain that we had. But in addition to that, it allowed us to be able to mobilize and to focus on some areas, and I'm satisfied that that initial work done on Sunday by the government and the private operators and ordinary citizens made a significant difference to our state of readiness, and therefore to the consequences that we would have faced.
Mottley also stressed that Barbadians should give thanks that the country had been largely spared, and she urged them not to get complacent.
Barbadians don't believe that you've wasted your money in buying the goods and the food items and all of those things, because we are still a good 93, 94 days out from the end of the season. In fact, the season ends when we sing God Bless Bim on Independence Day. Until such time, we have to be alert. And I ask persons, therefore, if you didn't get a chance to clean up around, you do so. If you've acquired stuff that you didn't stuff, know that you're going to have to.
Well, during the press conference, it was reported that a record 103 people sought accommodation in 38 shelters across the island, and the Prime Minister said the shelter occupancy and the preparations which Barbadians took ahead of Dorian's arrival were an indication of the seriousness with which residents were taking the hurricane season.
You can't live in the Caribbean and not be concerned. 2017 became a seminal year for us. In fact, that was the year that the notion of climate refugees became even more apparent. When we knew that people left Montserrat and had to be evacuated, we didn't relate to it because that's about volcanoes, and Bajans don't really know much about volcanoes. But what happened in Dominica and what happened in Barbuda and St. Martin and other countries in the region, I think shook up everybody. And it is fair to say that you would be foolish not to. For me, I keep making the point, I as a young girl went through Gilbert. So I don't play with hurricanes, because I know that today could have easily have been a very different situation. The storm, they had size, it was directly on us. I mean, it defies rational explanation. Everything else about it ought to have suggested that Barbados should have had significant damage. And I want to thank my colleague prime ministers in the region, all of whom in the Eastern Caribbean have been reaching out all night. And some of them are in disbelief when I say that thus far, the reports of the damage are virtually negligible.
While St. Lucia has reopened following the scare from Tropical Storm Dorian, the government on Tuesday lifted the measures it had imposed in shutting down the country after Dorian drenched the island but caused no major damage or injuries. Prime Minister Alan Chastanet said he was thankful the island was spared, adding that the public service had resumed normal operations from midday. He said workers in the private sector would have to await instructions from their employers. Small craft operators were advised to remain in port, and Chastanet urged residents in areas prone to flooding and landslides to still exercise caution. The acting director of the National Emergency Management Organization, Doreen Gustave, said all the roads were passable and there were no reports of major flooding.
As of 10 a.m., the all clear was given upon the advice of the Met Services, which discontinued the tropical storm warning for St. Lucia from 8 a.m. this morning. The warning was discontinued, and our teams had to go out there to do the assessment, the first responders, to ensure that it was safe for persons to be out there. Upon receiving that report from our first responders, we then declared the all clear.
And while Dorian was not a major threat to Dominica, Cabinet took precautionary action on Tuesday and decided that public service operations in the island should end early. Dorian brought heavy rains to Dominica from Monday evening, and the downpours were projected to continue into Tuesday afternoon. Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit said at a press conference on Tuesday afternoon that a decision was taken to send workers home immediately.
The vulnerabilities of some parts of the country, the possibility of some ravines and rivers overflowing the banks. The Cabinet has felt that it would be appropriate to have public servants find their way home immediately. And also we are urging the private sector to do the same. Now we have taken this decision, recognizing that we do not believe that there is any major threat or any threat to the country. But for us, the safety of our citizens and our residents is always paramount. And we do not want to have a situation where any persons or groups of individuals are unable to make it home because of rivers overflowing the banks or possible mudslides or landslides.
Well, the heavy rains and gusty winds from Dorian were subsiding over the southern Leeward Islands by Tuesday evening. At 5 p.m., the storm was located 80 miles west of Dominica. Maximum sustained winds were still 50 miles per hour as the storm moved to the west-northwest at 13 miles per hour. In other news, the Ghana Elections Commission, GCOM, on Tuesday announced that the ongoing house-to-house registration exercise will come to an end on Saturday as the country prepares for fresh general and regional elections as mandated by the Caribbean Court of Justice, the CCJ. The decision was made by the newly appointed chairman, Justice Claudette Singh, following a statutory meeting. After the meeting, GCOM commissioners told reporters there was no vote taken and the chairman had simply announced her decision. Justice Singh said that based on the ruling of the High Court on August 14th, the house-to-house registration was neither unlawful nor unconstitutional, and the data garnered from that exercise must be merged with the existing National Register of Registrants database. GCOM says, cognizant of all that has transpired over the past few months, the Commission has an obligation to produce a credible official list of electors in the first instance and ultimately credible elections within the shortest possible time. The electoral body said it would also be moving to have an extensive claims and objections period before extracting the preliminary list of electors. GCOM added that it would continue to further deliberate on other matters of importance for holding elections, and the Secretariat will continue to implement operations activities, in particular training of polling day staff and procurement of non-sensitive materials. Still to come in Caribbean Newsline, Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister denies issuing instructions to fire Indians employed at the Security Services Agency. We'll get right back with that story and more after the break.
Make it what you want. Make it what you want. Make it what you want. Make what you want.
When you think of what we went through with Hurricane Irma, you had to be able to recognize what are the things we need to do to cope with the aftermath. The psychological trauma, to me, is probably the most telling on a lot of people.
Preparedness is the key. So when people are prepared, when people have their resources in terms of how they can cope with the disaster, they're better able to be able to return to their normal life. They're better able to make decisions that are informed for themselves and for their family, and then for their community. Be ready. Look, listen, and link.
Barbados, renowned for its pristine beachfront and fantastic weather, continues to leave quite an impression on newcomers to the island and returning visitors. The Caribbean island, quite popular as a vacation hotspot, is not only beautiful due to its natural aesthetics. The island of Barbados continues to grow in popularity because of unique connections developed with our people, our culture. We can't wait to welcome you.
Trinidad and Tobago's Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley has strongly denied claims that he gave instructions to fire employees of the Strategic Services Agency SSA of Indian descent. In fact, he described the claim made by Carlton Denny, a former director of intelligence at the SSA, as a categorical, unvarnished and dangerous lie. Denny alleged on the platform of the opposition United National Congress UNC on Monday night that he had been given instructions to fire the East Indian employees of the security agency by senior government ministers, including Prime Minister Rowley. This is what he said at the meeting.
I am the person that they asked to fire all the East Indians in the SSC, and I told them, no, I am not doing that. This made the daily newspapers. I reminded Keith Rowley and the then Minister of National Security, Dillon, that in this country, every creed and race was fine and equal place.
But at a press conference on Tuesday morning, Rowley condemned Denny's comments, which he rubbished as an outright lie designed to sow the seed of racial hatred and tension in the Twin Island Republic. He said he had to respond immediately because the implication and effect of the UNC meeting threatened the very fabric of Trinidad and Tobago. He not only denied that he asked Denny to fire anybody, but he said the former SSA official's claim that he was fired because he refused to comply was not true.
This is a categorical lie. And it is the most dangerous statement to be made by any officer, no matter how aggrieved he or she is, to make to the population of Trinidad and Tobago that the Prime Minister of the country would have issued such an instruction, and that he, in righteous indignation, had to refuse to carry out that illegal action, and that is why he was dismissed from the SSA.
In fact, Rowley insisted he did not even know Denny.
I have never had any interaction whatsoever with Mr. Denny. I have checked the records this morning, had the records checked. In my capacity as Prime Minister, an office I came into on September 9th, 2015. To the end of the year, of 2015, during that period, Mr. Denny served there for 4 months. I'm told now, the record shows that. Mr. Denny never attended any meeting of the National Security Council wherein he might have interacted with me. I have never, in my capacity as Prime Minister, spoken to Mr. Denny in any capacity, not on the phone, not in writing, not face-to-face. I don't know the man.
The Prime Minister went further, revealing files on Denny, including what led to his dismissal from the security agency. Rowley read excerpts from an SSA document dated October 23, 2009, when he was a backbencher in the government led by Prime Minister Patrick Manning. The document, written to the then Permanent Secretary at the National Security Ministry, stated that Denny had displayed repeatedly unacceptable forms of behavior, primarily insubordination, task avoidance, and insightful disruptive activity. The correspondence outlined specific examples of Denny's behavior, but he was able to have his contract renewed. He was eventually removed in 2016. Staying in the Twin Island Republic, the president of the Public Services Association, PSA, Watson Duke, was hospitalized on Tuesday, hours after he was taken in for questioning by police over statements he is alleged to have made several months ago. The association says it views Duke's detention as an attempt to weaken the trade union movement. And opposition legislator Dr. Rudal Munilal has linked the development to an attempt by government to muzzle naysayers. Speaking at the UNC meeting on Monday night, he said the outspoken Duke, who is also the minority leader of the Tobago House of Assembly, was being silenced by the governing People's National Movement.
Watch for arrests of religious leaders, political opponents. As I speak to you now, trade union leader and minority leader in the Tobago House of Assembly, Watson Duke is being questioned by the police. Today, tomorrow, he could be charged for making statements. Understand what is happening here. Persons who make statements against this government now face persecution.
Ahead in Newsline Sport, a Jamaican sprinter faces a lengthy ban for using a banned substance. The details when we return.
Tobago is seeking to once again become a primary food producer in the country. And with agriculture getting a boost, it's the perfect timing for the island to co-host the 33rd West Indies Agricultural Economics Conference. The conference, an initiative of the Caribbean Agro-Economic Society, concluded recently at the Mount Irvin Bay Resort. The event was started in 1965 to assist the region in developing linkages, ideas that will support sustainable agriculture.
Topping our sports this Tuesday, a Jamaican sprinter is facing a lengthy ban from the sport after he was found to have used a banned substance. This is a major hurdle for Jamaica as the country gets set to participate in the World Championships, which is only a few weeks away. TVJ's Keon Rayner has more.
1 month before the next IAAF World Championships, TVJ Sports can report that a Jamaican athlete who was destined to compete in Doha, Qatar, has been cited for an adverse analytical finding for a bad diuretic. According to one impeccable source, it is understood that the substance was found in the athlete's A sample and was contained in a cold and flu medication, which has since been tested by a lab in North America, NSF International Labs in Michigan, USA. The initial test was carried out at the WADA-accredited lab in Montreal, Canada. Under the World Anti-Doping Agency WADA and IAAF doping rules, the athlete is facing the possibility of a 4-year ban for this first offense if the athlete is found guilty. Another source with knowledge of the matter has informed TVJ Sports that the tainted sample was taken at the National Senior Trials in Kingston between June 20 and 23, where the sprinter secured a top 3 finish. One of the sources, who spoke on condition of not being named, given confidentiality issues concerning doping cases, says the sprinter requested that the B sample be tested since the first week of August. The source also shared that the athlete was informed of the A sample result on July 25.
Trinidad-based cricket analyst Colin Murray believes India has a psychological edge over West Indies following the regional side's abysmal performance in the first test. West Indies lost by 318 runs inside 4 days and are hoping to level the series at Sabina Park in Jamaica. In this report by TV6's Sergio Dufour, we hear that Murray is calling for sweeping changes to be made in the squad ahead of the second test.
It was a tough game for the West Indies, who went under to India in the opening test by 318 runs in Antigua on Sunday, with 1 day to spare. This gives the Indians an unassailable 1-0 lead in the series, with 1 more to play in Jamaica on Friday. Local cricket analyst Colin Murray says it was a gutless performance by the Caribbean side. He says, quote, "When you look back at it, we were not aggressive enough and we are not mentally tough enough. In terms of Jason Holder's captaincy, he lacks the aggression that is needed for the team to put the opposition under pressure. Having said that, I think psychologically the Indians have the better of us because of their victories in the T20s and ODIs prior to the tests," unquote. Looking at Game 2, Murray feels the Windies are going to have their work cut out in trying to level the series. He says the Caribbean batters have a challenge on their hands when dealing with Jasprit Bumrah, Ishant Sharma and Mohammad Shami. The cricket analyst says, quote, "It's going to be very tough. Firstly, their attitude has to be right, and secondly, this question comes up. How do they get over the psychological barrier against the Indian pace attack? Added to that, most of the batsmen have to tighten up on their technique. I think we have to get the team selection right. At the moment, too much emphasis on the bowling is placed on Kimar Roach and Shannon Gabriel. The other bowlers, including Jason Holder, have to come good and give proper support to our opening attack," unquote. Regarding the combination for the Sabina Park Test match, Murray does want to see a couple of changes made to the starting 11. He was also unhappy with Shea Hope being sent in to bat at number 6 and then 7 in the second innings in Antigua. He says, quote, "I would just like Shea Hope to go up the order earlier and blunt the Indian opening attack to make life more comfortable for the batsmen to follow. Miguel Cummins was ineffective with his pace in Antigua, which is why off-spinning all-rounder Rakeem Cornwall may well be given the opportunity to play at this level. Then we have to look at the keeping options. Should Shane Dowrich be fit for the Jamaica test, he must play, which means we can probably then drop Darren Bravo or Shimron Hetmyer," unquote.
And that report was actually from TV6's Vinod Narwani. Continuing with sports now, the newly appointed coach of Ghana's senior men's football squad wasted little time in getting the Golden Jaguars prepared for the CONCACAF Nations League. The details in this HGP Sport report.
Appointed Golden Jaguars head coach Marcio Maximo has hit the ground running, preparing the Guyana-based Golden Jaguars for the upcoming CONCACAF Nations League. The coaches of the elite clubs are scheduled to benefit from his interaction with the team. This initiative is geared towards building the capacity of the local coaches, where they will have the opportunity to observe the sessions and ask questions as necessary. In the meantime, a 31-man Guyana-based provisional squad is in training at the GFF National Training Center, Providence, for the CNL. Guyana's first match is scheduled for September the 6th against Aruba in Curacao. Guyana will play 3 home and 3 away matches. Starting on September the 6th, it will be Aruba versus Guyana in Curacao. Then Guyana will face off with Jamaica in Guyana on October the 9th. Then on October the 11th in Antigua against Antigua and Barbuda.
And that's the sport. We'll be right back.
After an emergency, you can help yourself and others by looking, listening, and linking. Looking because you want to see if the person has some signs that is in distressing. Looking for the symptoms, how best you can support the person. And then listening, because listening is very important. Listening with your ears, listening with your eyes. If you do that well, then you'll be able to link them to the appropriate resources.
Be ready, look, listen, and link.
We know about hell in a cell, it's a rage in a cage. Gladiators them got words in the med, cat done put pen to the page. And we now come sing with no violence, curse word when we done tend to the stage. So shout out the big man who put the whole thing together, put it down, elevate. Truth is, boy, I done been training. Touch stage and I done plating. Swag tough, gotta raise your gazing. Lyric clean like I just done bathing. Nothing normal, this is ab. Hit my opponents with the jab. Punchline from the first line. Got Scuddy throwing up his hands. Leon and Juba about to dance.
Recap of the day's major developments. Barbados and St. Lucia come through tropical storm Dorian virtually unscathed, and in sport, a Jamaican sprinter facing a lengthy ban from the sport after being found to have used a banned substance. And that's Caribbean Newsline. For news and sport around the clock, subscribe to CanadaNews.com. And for more of our programming, log on to CaribVision.tv and check out our YouTube channel. We'll be back here again tomorrow, but from all of us at CMC News, thank you for watching and have yourselves a good night.